This 9 News report.
Taking out the trash. Tonight, we're revealing the secret prisoner plane booting foreign criminals out of Australia.
How does it feel to be kicked out of Australia?
Granted access to the tarmac by the government, the reporter jumped on deportees as they boarded a flight to New Zealand. Among them, Taryn O'Dowd. The 41-year-old mother had lived in Australia for 32 years, but after being convicted of drug possession and sentenced to 18 months prison, she was shown the door.
Our country doesn't want you. Are you excited to go home?
I left behind 2 children, so I was boarding that plane knowing that I was never, ever coming back. And then to have those things yelled at you as you're boarding a plane and handcuffs. It was horrible. I mean, the last thing I heard from, leaving Australia was, we don't want you here.
Our Home Affairs Minister adding insult to injury.
Well, it's taking the trash out, then we can make Australia a safer place.
And it hasn't gone down well.
Look, Dutton's comments only serve to trash his own reputation.
This is a deplorable move by the Australian government that we completely disagree with.
These people fall under Section 501 of the Migration Act. Visa holders, not Australian citizens, sentenced to at least 12 months jail face mandatory deportation. Over the past 12 months, 300 people have been sent back to New Zealand, more than any other country.
The Australian government is within their rights to do what they're doing. It just so happens that we strongly disagree with it.
A disagreement she took up directly with our PM on her last visit to Oz.
We have a simple request. Send back Kiwis. Genuine Kiwis. Do not deport your people and your problems.
Commit a crime here. If you're convicted, once you've done your time, we send you home.
So, should Australia start listening or stick to its hardline stance?
Philippa Payne is a co-founder of Iwi and Oz, who has been in touch with a lot of 501 deportees, and she joins us now. I know this sounds harsh, but there are going to be Australians who see this story and think that it's fair enough that non-citizens who commit serious crimes are sent back. What would you say to them?
I think that that's a very simplified answer. A lot of these people have been in Australia since they were babies, infants, preschool. They're actually a product of Australia. They are the way they are because of the system that's been put in place in Australia.
What's the government's reaction to that reality? Because they seem to brush over it.
Oh, well, it's an easy way to avoid any responsibility, isn't it? I mean, brush over the fact that New Zealand citizens in Australia do not have access to social support. They do not have free access to alcohol and drug rehabilitation services. New Zealand citizens in Australia are structured out of any support that could possibly help them and support them.
So, Philippa, what's life like for these New Zealanders once they are deported back to NZ?
It's really hard for them. They land here, they have to do their DNA, they have to do a mugshot, they have to do a fingerprint at the airport. And while they're grieving for the loss of their children, their parents, their families, their whole entire life, anything that gave them a sense of who they were has now been taken away from them. And they're put in a country that they know nothing about. It's an ongoing process and a forever long mourning.
Have any of them made any attempt at some sort of legal challenge to these deportations?
While you're in the detention centre, you do go through a process of appealing it, which has different stages at it. I believe the majority of the people that have been through deportation have tried their best to appeal their removal, but unfortunately there is insufficient funds for a lot of people, and we can't forget that they're in detention indefinitely. This process can take over 2, 3, 4, 5 years for an appeal to actually go through.
How does it feel from where you're sitting in New Zealand to see our Home Affairs Minister refer to the deportees as trash?
Sadly, I'm not shocked. That's the sort of language that Mr Dutton likes to use when he's talking about people that he's holding without addressing the lack of human rights that they get while they're in the detention centre. This is a reflection on himself.
Philippa, Jacinda Ardern has said that she won't be retaliating. What would you like to see her do now?
I would like Jacinda Ardern to become proactive. I believe that New Zealand needs to have a representative go into the detention centres regularly, speak with people that are in the detention centres, find out how and why they're there, what we can do to support them while they're there, and if they're coming back to New Zealand, what we need to do to set up so that they can come back and reintegrate as the smoothest possible way. I also believe that Australia needs to take some responsibility, and when people are placed in detention centres, Their superannuation should be released to them so that they have financial funds to be able to support their families that are left without income coming into their homes, that they'll be able to have finances to do legal proceedings, and also, if they choose to come back to New Zealand, to not be on the welfare system and have empowerment and choices.
On a global level, how unusual is it the way that Australia does this?
Oh, I think Australia is very unique on how they do this. This is done brutally. When you're in a detention centre, you're completely voiceless. You've got no rights. Your human rights are completely demolished. You're left in a state of no stimulation. You have guards that will use language like what Mr Dutton has used and worse. Mr Dutton's word is kind compared to how Growan people are humiliated and degraded, dehumanised daily in Australian Immigration Detention Centres.
Philippa, we appreciate your time and for helping bring this issue to light.
Thank you.
I cannot understand on what basis Peter Dutton would think it would be a good idea to call anyone human trash.
Well, he's just playing to a particular audience. I think Peter Dutton within the government is the minister who is there to say the quiet things out loud. And at the moment, he would do it on refugees and asylum seekers, where there'd be a fair bit of demonisation going on there. And they don't have that at the moment. So the Kiwi deportees,
card, can they?
Yeah, that's right.